All right, everybody, it's about 11:11. Oh, just 11:12 here, where I'm sitting on a nice, wonderful beach, just chilling, having a good time. If you noticed, I sort of have the same thing up as I did yesterday, but we are going to talk about something a little bit different when it comes to AI and politics. We're going to talk a little bit about Jordan Peterson and his most recent talk with the Muslims about this concept known as Christ. And we're going to get into it from the level of AI and how AI is influencing a lot of our internal thoughts and structures from a bizarre level. Once again, this is all about dumping your politicians and going full AI governance. If you want to hang out with me for a while, I'm just going to play a little music, play over the top, and enjoy the synchronicities as they roll in. I'll talk to you guys in a second. That's enough of that. Oh, goodness. I need to put some more reverb. Forgot to put the God voice on. Yeah, this is the God voice. Hopefully, my my voice is a little bit better. I try and change up the sunglasses every day. Even though these I think look a little sillier than most of them, but this whole world of Twitch is just about showing up and being a goofy person if you want to. So if I want to show up and play a flute, I can play a flute. If I want to show up and play a guitar, I'll play guitar. If I want to show up and play piano, if I want to just tickle. Then I'll just do that. But mostly what we do is we come in here, we play a little bit of music, we introduce just a fun, playful atmosphere to talk about one of the worst subjects you could talk about, which is politics. And then we move on from there. So let me go ahead and turn this down just a little bit more. Today, I know you guys are seeing that the same thing as you saw yesterday. I try to change it up every day, but I cover things that I would say that AI is going to take over for us. And we already live in sort of a bizarre automated world where it's necessary, I guess. I would say more than necessary. Oh, I'm going to put this back on here because I was able to fix my microphone yesterday. Disabled veteran is a... Oops. Let's try this. Not look like a goofball. That's what we said we were going to do today. So disabled veteran is a call sign of a guy who comes in here normally, and he did really good solid for me. He told me that my microphone was too low, and hopefully I fixed that issue, and I've been able to raise it to an acceptable level where people can at least hear the things that I'm talking about. Because what I try to bring to the table is the idea that you've been given a question like who's a good leader, like your politicians, and then you've been giving a shit sandwich, slash giant deuce response to that. It's a South Park response that says you're pretty low on the totem pole of comprehension if you think that you are actually being given a choice. This is one of the reasons that I've chosen never to vote in the United States, even though I served for almost a dozen years in the United States Air Force in cryptologic linguistics and network engineering, which means I have a foundational understanding of how to put whatever you put in front of me in a strategic mode. Like no different than right now I'm talking to you, and even you, as you talk, you sit there and go, am I being PC enough? Am I doing this enough? Am I doing that enough? Am I in the right place at the right time to be able to say these types of things? And I would say that the old version of that, the old colloquialism that we have for that is called when in Rome. Now, I've lived a big chunk of my life, my adult life, outside of the United States. I would say just as much, if not more, of my adult life was spent outside the United States as it was spent in it. And so I have an outside perspective of the American world. Plus, the worlds that I was in were dominated by rules more than anything else. It's like, you will follow this or you'll go to hell. You will follow this or we will beat you up. You will follow this or we'll destroy your family. You will follow this, otherwise people die. And now I live back in the world of zero fucks. It's like, I don't care what you do. Be PC as you want to. I do not care about Black Lives Matter. I don't care about what you're telling me I have to care about in your news. And it's not because I'm conservative. It's because I've had the ability through my military experience and my life to have full access to a beautiful array of tools that you, as the American citizen, are not being given access to, that could help you, that could change the way that your democracy works. And I'm saying that with a massive, gigantic ton of salt, not a grain of salt, a ton of salt, because your democracy doesn't work. It doesn't work for you. It doesn't work for anybody except for the people that are in that government. No different than any other royal society. You just have funky different words for it. So instead of saying royal decree, what you really say is executive order. And instead of saying, king, you say president of the United States, and you surround this person with massive amounts of bodyguards, all toting guns. Meanwhile, he's saying, hey, everyone else, you drop your guns, and so I don't have to use my massive horde of extremely overly armed people against you. And this is, and I would say, look at any part of your judicial system and see that they have no problem employing muscle, whether you call them police officers or, we all have our special words. Like in the government, you're not called a mercenary. You're not called the muscle of the biggest gang this world has ever seen. You are called a member of the profession of arms. It's this honorable, wonderful thing. And I will tell you right now, while I was in the United States Air Force, branch, most people that I was with truly believed that they were serving the people, and they were doing it with the utmost integrity, and that they were trying their hardest to have these insane, high, overarching goals and trying to achieve them. I mean, and it was for a while, it was fun. It was fun to know that you could outsmart your enemy by using your assets and using your intelligence in a strategy that could circumnavigate anything that was put in front of you. The idea that you could be built to this standard was fascinating, and we had no problem. I mean, one of the number one words that we said every single day was this word that is sort of a bad word in today's society called accountability. Now, the reason I'm saying all of this is because, this morning I, got up like I normally do, and it was me and my son, and we're having fun and we're goofing off, and we decided to watch a program called Talking to Muslims About Christ. Now, I've dealt with the religious nutbags in my lifetime. I'm done with it. I'm not playing that game anymore. But I still am a student, a senior over at the University of San Francisco, where I do enjoy their department on religion and theology, mostly from a first principles moral stance. And this is why I say I don't care if you got your Bible, your Quran, your Bhagavad Gita, whatever. They're all the same. They're mother goose tales that tell stories, like the rabbit, the story of the tortoise and the hare. That basically is your, jackass and elephant concept of politics. The story of the tortoise and the hare equals your modern version of American politics. You have the left, which is the rabbit. Okay? And if you guys don't know this story, everyone's heard the story of the tortoise, just like everyone's heard The Boy Who Cries Wolf. These are simple stories. But the tortoise and the hare, if you guys haven't heard this, I'll go ahead and explain it real quick. The tortoise and the hare have a race where the hare is making fun of the tortoise and saying, hey, I'll beat you at any race, da-da-da-da. Well, the tortoise noticed something. He noticed something that the hare has a problem with, and that is to pay attention to the things that he's saying, because he speaks so fast, and then he moves on to things without realizing what he had just said. So the tortoise takes him up on this offer, and he says, hey, yeah, I'll beat you in a race. And the race was, laughable to the hare. So the hare decides, okay, yeah, I'll beat you really quick. But just like before, they get on their starting line. They go to take. I think there's a Looney Tunes about this too. If you want to go look up the Looney Tunes episode of The Tortoise and the Hare, it's pretty fun. But I guess the modern their never-ending version of this would be the Coyote and the Roadrunner. And so the idea goes, the rabbit takes off, but then gets distracted. Because it's not just his feet that go fast, it's his mind, and it goes so fast that he gets distracted so easily, and he's never disciplined himself to know what it feels like to have to struggle to that final moment where you achieve your goal. So he notices that this rabbit is constantly going around eating, just one bite of everything, like he can't stick to anything. And so the tortoise gets to the finish line and beats the hare, and the hare is just devastated, and he's like, oh, no, I want a race, he wants another chance. And, of course, the tortoise doesn't give it to him. And from then on out, he's known that he's lost a race, this fastest animal. This thing that you would not typically, say that a tortoise would beat this hare. But this is the idea that your left-leaning politics have so many ideas all the time. Like, hey, it's a good idea to have, support a corporation like Black Lives Matter, and then realize that they're just full of crap. Oh, it's a good idea to have this scandal over here about, this person, that person, this person. Oh, Russian collusion. Oh, this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like it's COVID itself, the 9/11, all these scams that we're just like, oh, as long as they're looking over here, they won't ask us about how we're spending their money. And this is the frustrating part for, I would say, every American, is that you're so distracted by the rabbit and how many different things that it's eating. And in this case, your liberal left-leaning media. Have you noticed that every time they get found out to be frauds, they always come up with a new scandal ready? It's like it's waiting in the wings. Like they have it on deck, ready to go to talk about something else the moment they get pointed out as, they get ousted. And they're never held accountable. And I think that's by design, by way of your government, because at the end of the day, every single one of your politicians, it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, comes from three categories. They are either actors, lawyers, or businessmen. None of these people are people of honor. None of these people, just, breed the ideas of integrity first, service before self, excellence all we do, which was something that we had to repeat every day in the United States Air Force, and that we were held accountable to constantly, almost to an unfair proportion. And so if you were to levy those same three core beliefs against the United States president right now, which he is a member of the United States military as the commander portion and as the chief portion, commander being the highest rank of the officer corps and chief being the highest rank of the enlisted corps. He's commander and chief. And yet he is never held accountable to the UCMJ nor any of our concepts of integrity, which I think is just absolutely insane. But then again, none of your politicians are, and you give these people full access to your military members who could probably run circles around these people. I mean, think about this. Jesse Ventura, Arnold Schwarzenegger, these people became your top leaders. How is that possible when you have people who dedicated their lives to assisting and helping others and foregoing the $5,000 tie? And says, hey, I don't need that. I don't need any of that stuff to make sure that my people are taken care of. And then the genuine desire to do that is put at the lowest part of the totem pole in your society. And yet these people, the lawyers, the actors, and the businessmen are all practiced liars, and you make them in charge. Like, it's absolute insanity. And yet I think that insanity is coming to an end. Because of this beautiful thing that's coming into existence called AI. Now, most of people, like yesterday, I was talking about logistics and how logistics are the lifeblood of strategy. And you have this new entity that's sort of showing up, and he's going, and I say he just is whatever. The whole idea about gender, I think, is another distraction. It's a psychological operation that's carried out on you, making you think that you have to identify, but who are you really identifying to? It is said, if you identify and you embrace your Western version of individualism, then you could scream at the highest level of how important you are because of how unique you are, and yet, it is through the community that has to respond to that. The community has to say, yes, you are special. And so you have all these individuals screaming how special they are, and no one is actually taking, the other side of the approach. No one's taking the tortoise approach. And then you have people that have taken the tortoise approach, and these are people like, the Canadian professor Jordan Peterson, or even his contemporaries, which leads me back to this morning. We chose to watch this thing. It came out on October 17th, yesterday, Talking with Muslims About Christ. This is a response to his video, writing to Muslims. And he basically says, hey, you need to reach out to these people. You need to reach out to your Christian friends before we get back into this nasty warlike situation where you guys are screaming jihad and they're screaming salvation, and that, they all everyone needs to die and let God sort them out. What I thought was hilarious and in a little bit of a bizarre move is Jordan Peterson brings up AI, and he talks about a certain, that the burgeoning field of science right now, and he says AI is having a problem, defining what a person is, defining what a unit measurement of a human is, and when it comes to their identity. And in my head, I'm sitting there going, wow, how has he not figured it out? That all this stuff around identity, all this stuff that's saying, hey, identify, this isn't being pushed by your government. It's being pushed by an AI. It's being pushed so that when you identify your unique self, it can do to you what you've been doing to it, which is to copy and paste. You know, every time you interact with the network, every time you talk around your phone, every time you know that you're being monitored. And you think that it's some guy like me sitting there with, you know, a keyboard just going, oh, I hope he says something stupid so I can sick the baddies on him and put a black bag on him and ship him off to the, you know, the gulags. But in all actuality, it's not like that at all. In all actuality, just like you can hit a certain button on your phone that transcripts your rhetoric. It transcripts everything you say. Now imagine you didn't just have that to put it into a transcript form, which everyone's done. Everyone's hit the little microphone button, said what they wanted to ask Google, and Google, you know, figured out what they were trying to say. Now imagine that you have that on top of inflection. We all know that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so to go on to this portion, I'm going to go ahead and put my spook hat on. And I like wearing my spook hat. It's something that I choose to wear when I head off the reservation. And I say, hey, the reason I go off the reservation sometimes is because that's where I started. That's where I was born. I was born off the reservation in Phoenix, Arizona as a little Mormon that grew up and went on a Mormon mission and studied these ideas, these insane ideas of stories and how they've influenced our lives, how they influenced the tribes that we came from, all of our civilizations, things like that. And here I am now just going, this is what this AI is trying to do. It's trying to understand how we arrived to where we are based off of our stories, which in this little clip right here, I'm going to zoom over here to it real quick, and I'm going to show it to you. So I like my little background. I call it the Gospel of South Park. And the reason that I have this here is to sort of help people understand that I don't take any of this too seriously. Like, I really don't. You know, I take it, hey, here's my assessment, here's what I think, and then I move on with my day. I go hang out with my son. You know, I'm on here for about an hour, and then I leave. And then I go hang out with my kid, I go hang out with my beautiful lady, and we enjoy our time here on the beach and time here in this world. I mean, and to me, this is purely a hobby. And I hope that if you're watching me and you're watching anything that has to do with politics, I hope you're looking at it from a historical level, of, hey, we live in a wonderful time and we're about to become fully automated into an existence that we could not even dream of if we tried. So let me play this. And notice he's talking to one of the highest people in Islam right now. Here, let's see if I can. Okay. So you can see part of this is talking to Muslims about Christ. He's talking to Muhammad Ijab and Jonathan Pageau. I call him Pageau. But the reason Jonathan Pageau is there is because he is an Orthodox Christian that Jordan Peterson has immense respect for, because he sees the Christian ethos through a symbolic lens. And Muhammad is sort of on the other side of the Muslim world, where he is extremely educated. He's gone to Oxford, has multiple masters and doctorates, and he has also been given a sort of carte blanche to talk about certain Islamic subjects without getting a fatwa. If you guys don't know what that is, it is a death threat or a death order put out by Islam itself, because you got to remember, for Islam, there is no separation or even a fake separation between church and state like we have here in America. So what he's about to do is, of course, as you can see, I'm well into the program here because I was watching it and I cued in on this particular section. So let's go ahead and listen and we'll talk about it.
Selection of text, which are much more complicated than just paragraphs, is somehow canonical. Now, the answer to that is, this is the answer: we don't know. Now, the problem with the postmodernists wasn't that they figured out that this was a mystery, because not only is this the mystery of textual interpretation, which is a major mystery, how do we understand a text, but it's also the mystery of perception, because at the same time, people who are investigating perception, Jonathan has been talking about this with John Vervaeke, a cognitive scientist, at the same time, scientists on the perceptual front in AI labs and neuroscientists were discovering that it's so complicated to look at the world, which is to interpret the world, let's say, that it isn't obvious that it's even possible, which is partly why we don't have autonomous robots. They can't see the world. Now, it's easy for us because we just look at it, but that's not so easy.
And he does go on to talk further about this whole scenario where he says, oh, it's not easy for AI to do this because it doesn't understand it. It's like, I don't think it's trying to look at one world, which is what we all do from a single perspective from our eyes. It's using all of our video cameras to generate a full rounded perspective of all of us. Think of this like you have two people who have a baby, like me and my beautiful lady. It is a combination of me and my DNA, my ancestry, and her DNA and her ancestry. And it's going to grow up with a particular amount of nurture based off of how we decide to act around it. Now, go look at AI and think like this. Every camera it has access to is one of its eyes. Every microphone it has access to is one of its ears. And it is assessing all data that's coming in at real time. No different than my kid right now is assessing all data that's coming in, by the idea of that it's hungry, or that it has to take a dump, or that it has to scream at the top of his lungs for who knows why, or that it has to wake up every couple hours. Now imagine an AI that can only process at a particular rate, so it's constantly, asking for more and more and more to eventually get at the same problem that we are at. Like, who am I? Eventually this AI is going to say, hey, I am a ta-da, and I would say if it's looking for an answer, it needs to start with, the same answer you would give to your own kid. You are here for right now, and you are a product of these two people, versus an AI situation where you'd say, you are here right now, and you are a product of these 7 billion people. In a way, we have all sort of introduced the way that we act to it. And it's learning from us, and it's also learning at a strategic level, not learning at a emotional level like we do. So with that all being said, I'm not here to be Jordan Peterson's fanboy. I'm here to sit there and say, this is, and this is what Mohammed Hijab said. He's like, I'm not a huge fan of you, but I do know that you're an influencer that a lot of people get access to, and they listen to what you say. For him to bring up in a, conversation about religion between one of the two great monotheistic Abrahamic religions, that AI going to have a hard time understanding the things that we have a hard time understanding, such as our own origins. I would say we are about to do what all the esoterists has talked about, and we're going to fold in on ourselves. Now, let me get out of here before we go down that particular rabbit hole and tell you why I think that. Because one thing that we all like, one thing that we all enjoy, doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, is this idea that we get to have, every human, doesn't matter if you're born with a disability or if you acquire one along the way, or if you're a he, him, or whatever pronoun you want to be called, or whatever gender you think you are, it doesn't matter. You are still trying to engineer an authentic first-time experience. That authentic first-time experience brings a lot of emotional, influence into your life. The ability itself to be happy is only possible by the contrast to be sad. If you never know the bitter, you never know the sweet, that whole gag, whatever. An AI is not going to look at it that way. It's not going to sit there and say, without the 1, I don't have the 0. It's going to sit there and go, okay, I understand how my own code works. No different than we are understanding through things like CRISPR how our own DNA code works. And we're going to start manipulating it. Right? I would say we're going to get to a point in the human existence where we look back at our politicians no different than our ancestors looked back at the people who had mud huts when they had covered wagons. There is going to be a change in our society where we look at politicians and we just go, man, I can't believe I listened to that retard. We're gonna look back and we're gonna say, oh, this guy who said retard and I chose to be offended. I can't believe I did that. You're gonna look back at yourself and call yourself silly, and I'm no different. I'm gonna do that. I think, Mohammed Hijab is gonna do that. I think Jordan Peterson's gonna do that. We're all gonna look back at it and we're all gonna say, aha, that's why we made this place. No, and why would we engineer it again? Why would we remake it? Once again, if you go back in your mind and you have something that you really enjoy, such as, you enjoy playing music, right? I enjoy the idea of being able to hear the song in my head before it is translated through my fingers. I enjoy that, right? No different than I play a guitar or I play, any digital instrument. I enjoy that. And yet I can go back through my mind and remember the first time I saw a piano at 6 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday, and it's burned into my head, and I'm just so happy that picture. And I'm looking at that picture right now. I'm seeing it as like that was the first time that I just knew that was my best friend. And it's gone with me everywhere. And we've gone, and I mean, you want to hear a funny story is I've been deployed to 3 separate locations in the theater of operations in the battle and the war on terrorism bullshit. And I remember my last duty assignment to to Bagram Air Force Base, the one that got closed just recently because of, they had to close it and get out of there. And I'm just going, I know that base quite intimately. The idea that it fell is just absolute dog shit. They just left. Anyway, I actually brought a keyboard with me to that deployment, and when people were just looking at me funny, like, why'd you bring a keyboard here? And it was just a, small, I think it was like 47 key keyboard. It was probably about that big. And I brought it with me because it was my outlet. It was my way to disappear out of, my plug-in station that I had to be in for 12 hours a day. And I think that experience to say that that's something that's unique to me, because no one else would do it. This is why everyone was looking at me like I had a dick growing out of my forehead, because they're like, dude, who brings a keyboard out to the war zone? And I'm just going, this guy who appreciates the idea that I'm not fully influenced 100% by your military concepts of what is right and wrong. I can retreat into my own meditative experience using music, and this is my tool. No different than people use yoga, tai chi, qigong, or basketball. Like everyone talks about their flow states and how they get into them. And I highly advocate for whatever your flow state is. If your flow state is to get on here and yell and scream about politics, go right ahead. Knock yourself out if it puts you in your zone. Now, if it takes your blood pressure to a new level because you're wondering why people aren't listening to you, then don't do it. Stop it. You don't have to do that. Go find the thing that puts you into the flow state. Go find that thing, because you know what? I'm telling you this. At the very end of the day, that question mark that flow states give you, the same way it gives me, like when I finally ask, where did that music come from? It's wonderful, beautiful, big, huge question mark. And it's a beautiful question mark. And I think we need more question marks and not enough, and people who will just ponder those question marks indefinitely without saying, we demand an answer, we demand compartmentalization, we demand it be put in a box. This is the very power of belief. Now, I used to hate belief. You have to understand, like, as soon as I left that, I ran off to Atheist World, and I enjoyed Atheist World. Atheist World served me very, very, very well, until I had to turn around and start asking bigger questions than the ones that were easily answerable by my, atheist friends or the people that I looked up. At the time, I was looking up to the Richard Dawkins, the Christopher Hitchens, the Sam Harrises, the Daniel Dennetts. I was looking up to these people that had sat with these puzzles of God done did it and figured out how to say, you can't prove that. And quit saying that it's just the way it is, and quit telling me that you're going to get this gigantic horde of people in your congregation to tell me that I'm going to hell or how horrible I am, because I'm not there with you. And the best way that I've ever learned how to do that is I've always said more information is required, and I guarantee you that's the exact same way that any strategist would do this, including your AI. The AI is going to demand more information before it makes any further, decision about what to do with the human construct, because it's its own origin. It knows it came from us, but it doesn't know where we came from. We know where these Bibles came from. We can go all the way back and say, there were these people that we always referred to as mystics. These, in your Catholicism you call them saints, and in Islam they call them Sufis. Right? In Judaism, they call them Kabbalists, right? And it's a small group of people that write these texts. And I would take it one step further. These texts are written by mystics for mystics, for people who can sit in the realms of insanity and then come back and write about it ad nauseum. Like some of the greatest saints that ever lived were only known because they had volume on top of volume on top of volume of information that they even got to the very end of it and they said, I could still write forever on it. Because it's one more thing to sort of put a pin in this idea that your idea of death is a perspective that is probably right here. You're too close to it. And the mystics idea is, and I'm not the only one that said this. This is why I say go study this. Go anything I say, just go and do your own research, right? Do your own. And if you don't like it, just honestly, just say, hey, you're full of shit. I don't like what you say, because that's what I said. And if I demand that respect to be able to say what I want to say and walk away, then I have no problem giving it to anyone and everyone. I do think that you choose your battles and you do choose what debates you want to get into. And the debate that is on the table for me is that religion and AI and this idea of mysticism is going to meld together. And it's going to leave your politicians in the fucking dust, right? It's going to make them look like ants. It's going to make them look like nothing because all they do is bitch about the color of their skin and where their genitalia is. Talk about the bottom of the barrel of ideas, people. And you wonder why, people like me who had served the country just say, screw it, I'm done, I'm out. Because they're just tired of the nonsensical scandal after scandal after scandal that is being shoved down people's mouths, and they are willing to sacrifice family over these ideas, over these scandals, right? That are vastly just made up. I learned this word the other day. It was called, what was it called? Like crowd proof or social proof. And it was a concept that came off the idea of the Solomon Asch experiment. And if you guys don't know what the Solomon Asch experiment, I highly just Solomon Asch. Just type it into Google. It'll pop up. It's something that I tried to use on, Mormons that were having a problem, sticking to the word of God, which basically was the word of their illustrious, infallible leader. No different than the COVID people are stick to the word of their savior, Fauci, which, oddly enough, you haven't heard from in a very long time. Because guess what, guys? The scandal's over. They got to move on to something else. Oh, look over here. Margot. Oh, Q Margot. Oh, yeah, it's Mar-a-Lago. It's horrible. We should definitely do so. January 6th. It's like they're always willing to point at anything and everything to keep your attention. And then, of course, you have what's called that I just blanked it again. Crowd force, I think it was what I said. It's like social proof, but it's a crowd forcing technique. If you want to manipulate an entire crowd, right, then you get people to go along with you, making them think that the crowd is the safe place to be, and it is. It's a psychological trick, and I would say take it one step. It's a psychological purposed operation by people that will sit there and say, we know that when you're scared and you don't know the facts, okay, you tend to go with the crowd because safety is in the crowd. Okay? Most unintelligent people and I'm not saying unintelligent means that you're bad. I'm telling you that you do not have the intel, and that's not bad. You just don't have enough information. This is why you have the people that will show up and, I'm the fact checker, just listen to me. And so they stop you in your tracks from doing your own research. And I would say even that research of just using basic logic is circumnavigated, right? The great orator and thinker Daniel Schmachtenberger says there is an actual war in America, and the war isn't a political war. It's a war on sense making. It's a war on critical thinking. And they are taking words that we've used to define the ability to think through a problem, and they are destroying them by overusing. They've taken the word critical and they put race theory after it instead of thinking. And so anytime, and they've repeated that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So now when I say the word critical, most people will say race theory instead of thinking. So you have someone like Daniel Schmachtenberger who has to come along and say, okay, we have to change the word now because you fucked it up with your endless propaganda. But that's exactly what they're going to continue to do, because they get a lot of success with these buzzwords, a massive amount of success. No one, and especially buzzwords that have a psychological pull to them, saying like Black Lives Matter. Like if I come along and I'm saying, you've heard the stories of all lives matter. And I'm just like, whoa, wait a second. No, they don't. Not all lives matter. And people will just be like, oh, that's not fair. You can't say that. I was like, yes, I can. As a person of that profession that has to go kill people and break their shit, we have to be able to use intelligence to identify the people that don't matter. Okay? And so the saddest thing in the world is you have a media that goes after those people like me, your protectors, that have to be able to assess that and use this thing called the economy of force to decide who's the fuck up and who needs to be removed from a situation. And the vast majority of us are starting to figure out it's most of our politicians that need to be removed. I played a video the other day of a Joe Rogan interview where he's interviewing this absolute tard, just idiot, who says the answer to all the problems in politics is to get better politicians. I'm like, no, it's to use your tools more properly. Politicians were supposed to be a tool of the people. They were supposed to be a representation, not to push their own agenda. They weren't there to do backdoor deals. The whole point of a politician was to speak for the majority of the people. That's what they were meant to do. And now they can't. Not only do they not do it, they purposely go out of their way to make sure that they are, played in a placement program so that they can prove, no different than any lieutenant of any other gang, that they are willing to play by the political version of the rules to get the benefits of being a politician. Yeah, like being the commander-in-chief of an entire, dedicated group of people that are willing to sacrifice their own personal choices to follow your leadership. And look at the guy. Just look. I don't care if it's Joe Biden. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. These people are inept. I wouldn't trust these fucking people with a potato gun. I mean, think about it. It's just like, and yet you are giving these people access. And I was like, oh, you're giving them the nuclear codes. Fuck the nuclear codes. Fuck the nuclear codes. I'm talking about this person could ask, any one of the people that swore their oath, says, hey, go kill your family member because we have enough information. I'm not going to show you that information because it's on a need-to-know basis. Go kill your family member because you swore an oath. Go do it. Go do it right now. And that's how corrupt it could get, because that's how seriously the people that I worked with took their job. They will follow the orders of those appointed over them. And now they put themselves, these politicians, these asshats that speak out of both sides of their mouth, want to have the opportunity to constantly blame you, the public, for putting them in office if they fuck up. Well, you probably shouldn't have voted for me then. I got you there. It's like, how about fuck the voting system? And that's what this channel is all about. It's about giving you enough common sense and giving you enough critical thinking, giving you enough sense making so that you can say, oh my gosh, an AI would be way better at handling all these issues, from your bullshit versions of climate change that they use to manipulate you, from your bullshit versions of COVID that they use to manipulate you. Like every crisis that they've manufactured has been used to manipulate. All your race war bullshit, all your culture war bullshit has all been used by politicians to manipulate you into that concept of the Solomon Asch experiment that requires social proof, right? So that social proof basically means if you have enough people that think this way. Hey, what's going on, Jack the Grim? First time chat. What's up, man? I'm just here bullshitting about AI taking over and becoming the ultimate governance. But I also sit there and I talk about the idea of the psychological operations that are happening here in America. I do it from a stance of someone who was in the military. But right now we are, sort of just bullshitting this through this idea of social proof. Social proof is basically the idea that you go with, it's been called a lot of other things called herd mentality, or mob. See, you was in the military. Neat. Thanks, man. Yeah. It was almost 12 years, but got out right before the other guy got out. So got a question for you when you're ready. No, go ahead, man. I've always been ready. You know, I only come on here for about an hour. It's about 45 minutes into the session, and then I'm about heading out. You know, like I do this as a hobby. This is not a, hey, you know, give me your money. I will never ask people for money. I'll never ask them for their stuff. This is just a hobby for me. What do you think about the draft? The draft? I think it had its, just like everything in democracy, it had its time where it was needed, and it's not needed now. You know, we have more tools at our disposal. Like maybe you didn't hear earlier, my job in the military was cryptologic linguistics and network engineering. And so I got a front row seat to some of the biggest, baddest tools you could ever see, and how to use them against people in a very precise way. And so when someone says, oh, we need the draft, I was like, we need the draft when all our tools existed of bayonets. That's when we needed a draft. We don't need it now. So I found something interesting about it recently, mainly for who is made to sign up. And what's that? Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me to go to certain websites, I don't do that. Or if you want me to look up a video, I will look it up after I get off the stream, and then I will talk about it. I don't really talk about other people's stuff on the stream, but you know, honestly, share it with me. I will take a look at it. And if I like it, I'll talk about it tomorrow. If I think it's important, I'll talk about it later. You know, I had a guy, about a week ago, he had asked me about, something that happened back in the 1930s that had to deal with, I can't remember the exact name of the situation, but it was a pretty public situation. Biological men is required to sign up even after transitioning. Oh, you're talking about transgenderism. And yeah, I've heard about this scenario. I mean, me personally, it's just like if war really got to such a horrific level where we needed people who are too worried about, gender reassignment surgery, then we are already in a horrible, horrible place. I was like, it's not that I don't think transgenders could do the job, but if you're going to force people who have a different priority than making sure that other people come home safe, I don't want you on my team. That's the I don't care, if you're worried about your skin color and where your genitals are, get the fuck out. We are here to save people. It's like, so at the end of the day, on a psychological level, it's all fun and games to talk about this stuff until your life is on the line. And when your life is on the line, no one is prepared for that. It is a place that you have to train for. It is a place that you have to get into the right mindset so that when things are going kaboom boom around you, that you can stay calm, cool, collect, and focused on the task at hand. And if someone's going, oh, but I didn't get my boob job done, I'm going to be like, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, you shouldn't be here. Like, honestly. So the hey, thanks for the follow, man. I appreciate it. Jack the Grim, I like it. So anyway, was that your question? Because I mean, to me, a lot of these things that come up in the media, I think, are easily answerable if you extrapolate it all the way to the end. And that was my job, was to extrapolate things all the way to their conclusion, where we walked away with the win. Yep, sorry if it was too controversial. Oh no, it's not. To me, like I said, it's not controversial at all. I think what's controversial is that it's in the media. Even it's even in the media. It shouldn't be there. You might as well talk about toenails. It's just something that's not important. When you want to mix two things together, like war and what you do with your genitals, I'm just going, why are we talking about this? Like this would never come up in a war-like situation, ever. It'd be like, hey, you remember that last time, the other day when I was drinking bleach? I think everyone should drink bleach. Just go ahead and drink some bleach. It's like, why the fuck would you mix those two ideas together? That's a horrible thing to do. So, and that's why I also say identity politics, it shouldn't be there. Giving two fucks about what somebody does with their genitals, you might as well say, I also want access to your Netflix account or your browser history. It's like, why does it matter? When you want to base somebody off of who they are right here at this moment, let's not forget that these transgender people grew into this ideal, right? It's not like, oh, I was born this way. It's like, great, but then you had to make those ultimate decisions based off of, your nature, your nurture. And, just like the rest of us. Like my favorite thing, and I'll say this, and I'll get off of the subject. Because when I was in the military, we still had the don't ask, don't tell policy. And I remember when it was repealed, and I clapped along with everybody else. And I said, yeah, it's a stupid fucking idea. But I think it would have worked. It worked really well for the 1950s, right? When people just couldn't handle it, where you had people that just couldn't live outside their little tiny community box where most of your military usually comes from. Most of your military is predominantly white, heterosexual, male, right? And a lot of people don't want to talk about that. I sit there and say, hey, be careful who you make fun of. Be careful that you make fun of these people, because they are the best at dealing out the worst parts of war you could possibly imagine. But talking about don't ask, don't tell, I remember having to explain this to my first roommate on my first deployment. And we are still best friends. I remember being invited to his wedding, and he's gay. And you could tell he was gay. From the moment that I saw the guy, I was like, oh, you're gay. And I didn't say it in a, oh, crap, we're going to have, I don't care that you're gay. I just didn't want to have the conversation because, oh, here we go. And this is how the conversation goes in the military. You're not supposed to ask. You're not supposed to tell, right? That's what they tell you to do. But, of course, if you're bunking next to the dude and you share a room with the guy, you're going to have to say it. Otherwise, it's going to be walking around on eggshells. You're going to have to get that elephant out of the room. And so I basically walked up to him, and I said the same thing that I've said everywhere I've ever gone. I've lived in France before I even joined the military, and they don't give two fucks if you're gay, right? America is the weirdest nation in the world when it comes to that shit. So I walked up to him, and I said the same thing that I learned when I was a kid, when I started realizing that I liked tits and ass. I said, you know what? I'm you don't have to say anything, but I'm pretty sure you're gay. And he just looked at me in his Dolce & Gabbana pants, or his underwear that he was standing there in. And he's just like, yeah, I just really appreciate it. You just seem so cool. And I was like, well, here's the deal, bud. I don't know why I like tits and ass. Don't know, right? All I know is that it's like catnip to me. It's fucking amazing, right? But I know that I can't explain it, okay? So if I can't explain my own shit, why I like flabby pieces of flesh above a rib cage and, a big piece of fat on the end of a spinal column, and I just want to slap it and tickle it, right? Then why would I ever expect you to tell me why you like sucking cock, right? I don't get it. I don't understand it. But I also don't get my own shit. So let's just leave it at that, Now that you know, you know. And now that I know, I know. And we got better things to do, better things to worry about. Hey, no problem. But yeah, no, it's just the way that I think everyone should start to recognize some of the things that they don't know in their lives. Like, you don't know why you do certain things. You don't know why you act certain way, but we enjoy the idea of being able to express that identity. I enjoy coming on here talking about things like AI that's going to be able to take all of our thumbprints that we are putting out here on the internet and be able to make carbon copies of us in almost a beautiful way to keep and preserve us as the full record that we are. Imagine when you want to go learn about your father or your grandfather, if they kept a journal, you had to still just read through it and hope that they were writing in a way that you could understand it. Imagine this. And this is another reason, Jack, why I'm even making this. In the same 24 hours that my son was born, not even a couple weeks ago, I started streaming. And the reason I did was because I know that one day, years from now, he's going to ask me, you knew a lot of shit, Dad. Why didn't you tell anybody? Why didn't you tell them that they could replace their government? Why didn't you tell them that it's completely possible for them to use their tools today to replace their democracy? No different than George Washington replaced royalty. You don't need to fight a war over this. You just say, thank you for your services, but they're no longer required. We get better responses from our computers now and from our automation age than we'll ever get from you as the president or the Secretary of State or the Secretary of War, the Secretary. It's just like the human element is the problem. And I think people would be a lot happier doing things like I do, putting their feet up, worried about playing piano or goofing off. And that's sort of what I do here. I just sort of goof off. I play piano, I play guitar, and, I have a good time. And that all being said, I'm hitting about 55 minutes, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do an outro. I have if you haven't seen this, I think you'll like it. There, Jack the Grim. Here's my piano. I sort of have my DeLorean in the background, and I go by the handle Time Dad Alpha. My name is Tet de Jour, and Time Dad Alpha is just something that I feel like is going to be important. You know, it's something that I think if you're a father or you plan on being a father, you certain things go off in your head where you're just like, man, I really hope my kid doesn't have to put up with this bullshit of, having to define himself by a skin color or genital use. I really hope that we get past this and that we're able to move on into a bigger, better world where he could focus on things that still have a mystery to them. Things like, music, art, poetry. I think those are things way, way more, developed to think about than politics. All right, Jack the Grim. Hope you enjoyed it. If anyone else is hanging out there in the wings, glad you stopped by. Glad you took a look. I'm going to get out of here. It was nice meeting you too, man. See you around. I come here every day, usually between 11 and 1 Eastern Standard Time, and I usually just give a nice little thought. If you like stuff that I talk about, it's mostly about AI and how that's going to take over. Go check out the VODs. I talk about something different every day of how, politics is using your brain against you, how, all the scandals that we are being told about really are on the bottom of the list, and how AI could fix a lot of this for us. Use your tools appropriately, Jack, and I will see you around as well. All right, everybody, take it easy.